So, our sacred story this morning comes to us from the Gospel of John, verse 1 through 5, and then picking up again, verse 14 through 18. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through him. And without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. From his fullness we have received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made God known to us. And if you would be so kind as to join me in the congregational response found in your bulletin. This is the sacred story of God and God's people. May the still speaking God speak to us this day. Thanks be to God. So, as I was trying to explain to the children, this is the first Sunday after Christmas. It is part of what is called Christmastide, the season of Christmas, and it is part of the 12 days of Christmas. Now, on Christmas Eve, as I was driving over to the church, I was listening to the radio, and there was a DJ on the radio who said something along the lines of, now that the Christmas season is coming to a close. And I thought to myself, oh, you naive secular humanist. Christmas isn't the close of the Christmas season. Christmas Day and Christmas Eve is the beginning of the Christmas season. And it lasts 12 days from Christmas Day until Epiphany, when the three magi come. And even though, like I said to the children, even though many of us have opened our presents underneath the tree and have enjoyed that time with family and friends, here in the Christmas season in our culture, many people are ready to just kind of pack it up and put it away and move on to the next thing. Some of us have already put the Christmas tree on the curb. Many of the stores have their after Christmas sales and are taking down the decorations and are putting up the decorations for Valentine's Day and for spring. But this allows us an opportunity after the rush and the frantic push that precedes Christmas Day to take a moment in this Christmas tide and to slow down finally and take a deep breath and remember and to open up our hearts to what is the true meaning and purposes of the Christmas season. Because even though many of us went crazy trying to get the perfect thing for the perfect person, for the perfect gift, and unwrapped that, either slowly, meticulously, like some of us do, and others like in a shark feeding frenzy. There are people in other parts of the world, other Christians, who wait until the 12th day of the 12 days of Christmas to open their gifts. And so we move past all of this, and we're given this opportunity to be reminded of what Christmas is all about. Today's sacred story is taken from the Gospel of John. And in it, he begins his prologue, which sets up all the themes of the gospel with the words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." This is John's nativity. This is how John begins his story. And it doesn't begin with shepherds and angels and an expectant mother and a baby in swaddling clothes lying in a manger in the city of David. No, David harkens back to the long, long time ago and the way, way back, to the very beginning, to the book of Genesis, the first book of the Torah. He harkens back and echoes the words of the book of Genesis where it says, "In the beginning, when God began to create, God swept over the chaos and the darkness and said, 'Let there be light.'" And in John's gospel, In the very beginning was the Word, and the Word was the light, and the light was the life of all people. The God who moved over the face of the darkness and the chaos in Genesis is the same God who spoke, "Let there be light," is the same God, the Word, the Logos, that creative power that pulsates and permeates through all of the universe and through all of us, that creative existence that is preeminent and eternal. This Logos takes on flesh and blood and dwells among us. And John writes, what came into being in him was life. And the light was the light that shone on all the people, and the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it. The God, the Logos, the Word, that creative power that permeates throughout the universe, takes on our flesh and blood and comes into our context. And it doesn't ignore the darkness. It doesn't shy away from the darkness. It doesn't run from the darkness, but it plants itself squarely in the midst of all of it. And whatever personal, interpersonal, relational, cultural, socio-political darkness that is in the world, the light shines, and none of that darkness could overcome it. Since Thanksgiving, our malls, our stores, our culture, our media has been trying to convince us that it's the most wonderful time of the year. And when I was a child, Christmas was magical. My mom, God love her, she pinched every penny for 11 months so that she could spend all of that savings on her children on Christmas Day. And we never went without on Christmas. She spoiled us rotten, and she made every single Christmas meaningful and magical for me when I was a child. But now I'm an adult. And you would be saying to yourself, an adult who plays with toy lightsabers on Christmas, so maybe not the most adult. But still, I'm entering my 4th decade on this planet, which by cultural standards makes me an adult. And Christmas is just different. It just is. It's not bad, it's not horrible, it's just different. There are economic stresses to Christmas. And I am employed and have a pretty good paying job, and there are still economic stressors on me. I can't imagine what the unemployed or the underemployed, or God love them, those who wish they could retire but can't, and the economic stressors that they're feeling. There are people in our community, in our city, our state, our nation, who are still serving in war-torn areas this day. It didn't make the biggest splash in the evening news, but 5 days prior to Christmas, 5 service personnel in Afghanistan died in combat. In Afghanistan. I thought that war was over. And that says nothing of the Syrian refugees or the refugees coming up from Latin America or the indigenous people of Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Northern Africa, Colombia, who are in the midst of terror and violence every single day. Many of us are living with illness or ailments that are attributed to just growing older, to little Kimmy, who had to be put into Sloan Kettering Hospital, admitted into Sloan Kettering Hospital the day after Christmas because she had a reaction to her treatment. And Michael Brewster, Brian's brother and Marion's son, who's in the 3rd round of chemotherapy. Or Teresa Higgins, who has been placed on hospice and is nearing that stage of life that enters into life beyond life. And there are those of us who lost loved ones this calendar year. Many of us lost more than one loved one this year, and so there's a grief during this time of year that's brought on by the great memories of Christmas pasts. So there might be some of us who are just ready for the season to be boxed up and put away, and we'll see you next year, Christmas. But we're in the midst of the Christmas season. It's not a day, and it just begun. A couple of years ago, I was visiting a church member who was unfortunately in a hospital, and so I went to go visit them the week before Christmas. And when I went to the hospital, I went up to the concierge desk to get the room number where the patient was in so I could visit. And there were two volunteers and speaking to a hospital employee, and they were very agitated. And so, but they stopped speaking to each other and paid attention to me when I walked up to the desk. And when they saw me, one of the volunteers said, "Well, can you believe that?" Oh, believe what? Now I'm intrigued. Believe what? And she points to the nativity set on the top of her counter at the concierge desk. And she says, "Can you believe that? Someone stole Jesus out of the nativity. Who would do such a thing?" And immediately I started to laugh, because I was reminded of my very first Christmas in Miles City, when someone had stolen baby Jesus out of the nativity on the courthouse lawn. Yes, you heard me right, the nativity on the courthouse lawn. And there had just been so much consternation and just so much stuff in the Miles City newspapers about how we were all going to hell in a handbasket, and that, this next generation, they have no respect for anything. So I immediately went back to that and started laughing, and she said, "Someone stole Jesus right off the counter. Can you believe that?" And I didn't really know how to respond, so I said, "Well, this looks like someone took Christ out of Christmas." And she didn't really appreciate my attempt at humor. So I just kind of said, "I'm a minister, and I just want to visit the person in my church who's in a hospital. Can I just get the room? I'm sure whoever took Jesus will bring him back." And I went on my way. But some of us get so caught up, and we forget what the purpose and the meaning of the season is. And so during these 12 days of Christmas, even though we're being pulled apart in all of these different directions, we're reminded and called back to what is at the very center of our celebration, where our heart belongs, to celebrate the mystery of the creating God who comes in flesh and dwells among us joyously to live among us. This word became flesh to give life and breath and hope to us all. One of my favorite theologians is Matthew Fox. He's a beautiful poet and spiritual teacher. And one of his best books, in my opinion, is called Original Blessing. And in it, Matthew Fox writes, "We enter a broken, torn, sinful world, to be sure. But when we are born, we are not born as blotches on existence. We burst into the scene as original blessings," which is an important message for us this day, one that we need to hear when we are in the midst of constantly being told that just by simply waking up and rolling out of bed, turning on the heat, and making a cup of coffee, all the damage that we have done to the world, just unconsciously and subconsciously by waking up in the morning, we need to be told that we're not blotches on the existence of this planet. We are not a virus that needs to be cured. We are God's original blessing, and we are good. The creation is good, and the plants and animals, sky and water and sea and land is good. We, our bodies, ourselves are good. And we are original blessings. And as original blessings, we are called to live with love and peace and kindness and compassion, offering forgiveness and grace. And we are called to be fully human. The God of the universe came and dwelt among us as a fully alive human being, and we are called to be fully alive, not marginally alive, not just a little bit alive, but fully alive. And Matthew Fox ends that chapter by saying what it means to be fully alive is not the same as going shopping or becoming a recluse and making a nest so that you can get away from everyone. And I marked out that chapter. No. Matthew Fox reminds us that living has to do with being a person of love, which means loving yourself with all of our flaws and loving other people regardless of how much they make you so frustrated and just, and that you and others have the right to life with dignity. That's what it means to be an original blessing of God. And that's what it means to be to be alive in Christ. So the real struggle of Christmas is not who stole the baby Jesus out of the nativity set, or whether or not there should be Christmas trees in airports, or whether there should be nativity sets on courthouse lawns, or whether or not coffee shops should put holiday symbols on their red cups. The real struggle for the soul of Christmas is allowing Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh, God made flesh, the Logos made flesh, to be fully enfleshed in us. And our hearts and our minds fully enfleshed in our relationships to God and each other and to this earth. In this season of gift giving and all that pulls and tugs on our hearts, may we remember the good gifts that God has gifted us this year. We still have a sun and a moon. We still have this beautiful earth with the sky and the land and the sea and all that dwells on it. We have flora and fauna that inspire us, and animals who we're related to. And we have this incredible gift of life, of flesh, of blood, from birth to death and everything in between. We have the gift of this moment, and we ought to be thankful for it. We have this day, and we have all the people in our lives, the good ones, the great ones, the bad ones, and like, I can't believe that person called me once. And they're all a gift, and their lives matter, and they deserve dignity, as do you. And this is what it means to be fully alive, a fully alive human being. And above all, may we remember the gift of the Word, the Logos, the creating and creative God who came and dwelt among us to teach us, to guide us, to heal us, to inspire us, and thank God to save us, and to bring us back into the realization that we are God's original blessing. Merry Christmas, everybody. Amen.